the first thing I want to talk to you about is competition. So we've just had a spring budget today, haven't we? Rachel Reeves has been talking about, hey, there's no more money. Basically that's a message I'm getting, and we're going to cut back lots of welfare things and public sector and make everyone more efficient. Whenever I hear we're going to cut bureaucracy and make the public sector more efficient, I always think, yeah, we're going to cut the numbers. We're going to cut the numbers. And we're already seeing that take place. We're already seeing forces like West Yorkshire Police talking about a budget deficit of, I think it was about 18 million. Several other forces talking those sort of numbers. The Met Police talking about an eye-watering 200 million. And we've already seen the internal memos. It's okay they're not stamped confidential or anything, but we've seen the internal memos that have gone out that have talked about how the reduction in police officer numbers is also going to impact on promotion. So there's people hoping to get promoted who are not going to get promoted this year. This is having a knock-on effect right through the police service. The only area that's going to get any kind of boost in numbers is neighbourhood policing, and a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. Government's talking about 15,000 additional neighbourhood police officers. That word additional keeps cropping up. It cropped up during Uplift as well, where the Conservative government got rid of 20,000 officers over a 10-year period, and then they had this great idea, we're going to recruit an additional 20,000 officers. So all it did is it took it back to where it was. The 15,000 additional neighbourhood police officers, it's not that many actual new recruits in there. There are some, but it's also going to be made up of new recruit PCSOs and special constabulary and people being moved from other parts of the force to neighbourhood policing. Watch this space. Here's my prediction. We will see lots of ghost officers. I had ghost officers when I was a neighbourhood inspector 15, 20 years ago, when the Labour government did exactly the same thing. I don't want to get political or anything, but it's like the same pattern repeating itself, that we will have lots of officers in neighbourhood policing. I had a team of over 20 officers. 12 of them I've never met before. I'd never met them. 12 officers, I'd never met them. They didn't work on my team, but they were on my list of officers I had on my team, but they were actually in the burglary squad. One of them was actually a detective in the CID, but he was actually allocated to my neighbourhood policing team whilst he was still working as a detective. So we're going to see lots of smoke and mirrors like that, but I think that's the only area that's going to get any kind of boost. So how many of you have already had, because I know there's one of you at least, how many of you have already had an email to say, we're really sorry, we were planning on an intake in June, but it's either full or it's not happening. It's going to be later in the year or 2026. Has anyone actually had that email yet? I'll just go to page 2. Justin has. I'll come to you in a moment then, Justin. Ewan has as well. All right, let's go to Justin then, one of our Academy members, because I'll probably have a bias towards Justin because he's one of our Academy. So go on, Justin. What have you been told?
I just got a simple email saying it was between the PSEP route and the PCDA route. The PSEP route was going to be of a hold with the Met. They encouraged me to do the PCDA, which will be most likely a recruitment in 25.
All right.
So, yeah.
So
I went
what's your decision, Justin?
I went PCDA because I want to get in there. And it's good stuff. I mean, if it's an extra year, it's great. I don't mind. Get a degree. Yeah.
Great stuff, Justin. Well, thank you, Justin, for making that good decision. That's going to be part of my advice. Thank you, Justin. Let's go to Ewan. Let's find Ewan if we can. Ewan's unmuted himself. Brilliant. So, Ewan, what's your position?
One of the unlucky Lincolnshire officers, unfortunately, Brendan. Yeah, so I split my application, started the process with Leicestershire, moved it to Lincolnshire because they said to me, I asked about planned intakes. They said September, November, January, passed force interview, August the 13th. Then they said there will be an intake in March 25. So I went with it. And then in January, you've seen the guys in the Facebook group, we were all told, unfortunately, you've missed out. We're working towards September, but we cannot guarantee it. Fortunately, I hadn't handed in my notice at work like some of those guys had done. But that's when I came to you and I said, what do you think I should do? And you said, transfer to another force. So that's what I'm in the process of doing now. And I know how fierce the competition is, hence why I've come to you. And I wanted to speak to you about joining the academy as well, please, Brendan.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. Which force is it you're going for now then?
Leicestershire.
Leicestershire. Back to Leicestershire. It's like
yes,
from one to the other. So
yeah.
let's drop me a message and we'll see
Thank
what
you.
to make sure that you succeed with Leicestershire, because also
Perfect.
what's going to be happening there is there are going to be people from Lincolnshire. You're not the only one, are you? You're like
No.
the one. Yeah, so it's going to get a little bit competitive there. All right,
Yeah.
Ewan. Awesome. Well,
Thank you.
we'll make sure you get that intake. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so Justin and Ewan are actually great examples of what you should be doing in these circumstances. Or if you're not at this point yet, what I'd like you all to be doing is to start thinking about creating options for yourselves, if you possibly can. Now, some of you may have heard me talk about this advice before, and you may be thinking, why have I heard this before? It's because the situation we're in at the moment isn't that different to the situation that the police were in several years ago. None of this is unusual to me. The only thing that is unusual is Lincolnshire. And what was unusual about Lincolnshire is that they cancelled an intake. Now, that I've seen happen over the years. Over the 14 years, 15 years I've been focusing on recruitment as well as promotion boards and specialist interviews, I've seen forces do this. I've seen forces tell people, and you'll hear this language all the time, we've got a planned intake for. We are hoping that our intake will be. It is probable that we are looking towards. There's no certainty in the language because they don't want to be looking at any sort of complaints. Actually, I don't think they're that bothered. I don't think Lincolnshire were even that bothered about complaints. They just had to ride that storm. And so I've seen many an intake be cancelled before, or the numbers reduced. So the intake, there was going to be 2 intakes of 20, 40 officers, then gets reduced to 20. Why? Because there just isn't that much money knocking around, and because there's a squeeze on the public sector. I don't think it's going to be like the squeeze that we had in austerity, but there's definitely a squeeze. And Rachel Reeves was talking about this today. She's not going to change her fiscal rules, but they're going to have to find the money from somewhere. And it's going to come with, I'm sure I heard the phrase efficiency savings. The amount of time over the past 4 decades I've heard the phrase efficiency savings, and it always results in the same thing, less of whatever it is, and it's normally less police officers. So what can we do about that? If you're at the start of the process or in the middle of the process now, start preparing for your force giving you that cancellation. Hopefully not like Lincolnshire. Like Lincolnshire told people to hand in their notice. They gave them a firm offer of employment, gave them a start date and said, we encourage you now, actually we want you now to hand in your notice at work. So plenty of people did. And then a week later they got an email to say, oh, by the way, you know, the intake you thought you were going to be in, cancelled. And as Ewan just said, maybe in September. And it's a big maybe. So there is a way out of this, folks. There is a way out of it. So the first thing is get your SIFT done, get your online assessment centre done, because you can only do your online assessment centre with one force. You can only do it once in any 6-month period with one force. As soon as you've got that under your belt and you're aiming for a high score, because there's been forces like Thames Valley Police who have even put it on their website to say that this process is competitive, we will select people for final interview based on your online assessment centre score. So we've got to get the highest marks we possibly can. A pass might not be enough. A pass might be enough to get you into a talent pool. Is anyone in a talent pool at the moment? No. Do any of you want to be in a talent pool? Justin's like shaking his head. Mark's shaking his head. Mark and Justin have heard me talk about it before. Sounds great. Oh, I'm in a talent pool. No, it's not. It's shit. Because it just means that your scores weren't high enough to take you through to the next stage. And people who are still being recruited into the process will be getting higher scores than you, and they'll just be jumping over your head. They'll be stepping over your head to the interview. So we want to make sure we've got the highest marks possible. As soon as you've got your online assessment centre results and you've got good results under your belt, now is the time, if you can, because I appreciate for some of you might be bound geographically, but now is your time to start thinking, right, where else can I apply for? Now, some of you may have heard you can only apply for one force at a time. Urban myth. College of Policing rules, and if any of you even need those rules, I'll dig them out for you. You can always message me and I'll send you the actual document itself that says you can apply for as many forces as you want, but you can only do one online assessment centre in any 6-month period. Get that under your belt and then start exploring other forces, because there's some forces out there that are feeling the squeeze, but I also know of two forces that are, it's not that they're struggling, but they've got the vacancies. they've got the vacancies, and everyone has presumed, because of the force that it is, that it's really competitive. And so they've applied elsewhere, thinking, I'll give you the name of one of them. One of them is Cumbria Constabulary. Cumbria Constabulary is I mean, it's such a great force. Cumbria is an awesome force. It's an awesome place to live. It's an awesome place to work. And I think what's happening is people are presuming it's going to be so competitive, I'll never get in. So I'll apply to Lancashire, I'll apply to Northumbria, I'll apply to Greater Manchester Police, all the neighbouring forces. Poor Cumbria is in a position where it's still competitive, but it's nothing like as competitive as people think. And I know this because, you know, we've got people who we ethically speak to within forces, and they speak to us as well and let us know what's going on. We know that Cumbria is a good place to apply to at this moment in time. You're still going to have an interview. You're still going to have to pass everything. You're still going to be judged on your merits at the final interview. You're still going to have to reach the required standard, but it's not as competitive. They're not running a talent pool. The other one that we believe, but we've not heard, it's only like B21 rating, which means it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, reliable information. We've heard that Hampshire and Isle of Wight police as well have got sufficient places to entertain transfer applications from other forces. So once you've got that online assessment centre under your belt, start applying if you can for other forces. We've got one of our clients in the academy who last year had 7 applications going. Seven. I think he did 4 interviews. I think it was 4 interviews, might have been 5, or he might have been invited to a 5th, and then he just thought, actually, I've got enough for 4. He passed every one of them. I'm not going to say his name, but he passed every one of them. And the good thing he had under his belt there was options. So the person who's got the most options is always able to make the best decisions. Is that making sense, folks? Give me a thumbs up if that's making sense, or wobbly thumb if it's not. Awesome. I'd highly advocate you do that. Now, you may have a force saying you can't apply to join us whilst you're applying for another force. If you do get that, let me know, and I will send you the College of Policing guidance. Because ultimately, though, they may be the final arbiter. So although the College of Policing guidance says that you can apply for as many forces as you want, if you've got a force saying, if you want to apply for us, you've got to drop all the other applications. I don't care what the College of Policing says. That's our rule. Then you've just got to follow it. The golden rule kicks in. Those who hold the gold make the rules. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure that we're in that position where we've got those options. So a couple of things there. One, get the highest marks possible. That way, if there is an intake that's only 20 as opposed to 40, you've got one of those places. That's why our academy members, am I right, academy members, that our coaches are always like, no, we're not going for a pass. We're going for the highest marks possible, top 10%. Give me a thumbs up if that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're aiming for. And you get that kind of pressure off us. It's nice pressure though, isn't it? Is it nice pressure? Give me a thumbs up. Well, yeah, it's nice pressure. That's it. Awesome stuff. So anything else on that I made notes on? No, it's not like austerity 12, 14 years ago. Some of you might be thinking I was in shorts or at that age, but I remember austerity kicking in where forces just stop recruiting completely. They can't do that. They can't stop recruiting. So there are going to be opportunities for you. Now, has anyone got any questions about anything that I've covered there? Anything they want to ask? Just wait. Yeah, go on, Joseph. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes, Joseph. Go ahead.
Right, you probably have covered this, but I just wanted some clarity to make sure I'm definitely understanding correctly. So
Sure.
I got an OAC pass with Northumbria Police, and I'm booked in to do my final interview in April. Now that I have that online assessment centre pass, I understand that's valid for 24 months, is it?
It is, yeah.
So would I be able to, for example, Durham Police, I could apply for a final interview at Durham at the same time if the forces allow it?
You absolutely can, yeah. And I would.
Okay.
I would. They're both brilliant forces. Durham and Northumbria, I've got a lot of time for both of them. I think they're both awesome, amazing forces to belong to. So the other thing there as well is, I know you won't, Joseph, because, I mean, both of them are tough, but Durham's tough. Durham is a tough interview, that one. They've always had a reputation for being a tough interview. So I know it won't be you, Joseph, because you're going to do amazingly, I'm quite sure. But we do have circumstances where people come to us to join our academy, and what they're saying is, I've just failed my force interview, and they've told me I can't reapply for, we've had 3 months, we've had 6 months, and we've also had one force, I'm not going to name them, shame them, although I feel as though I should, who said you can't come back for 12 months. 12 months. I mean, what the hell is that all about? I don't understand the rationale behind it. I don't even understand the rationale behind 3 months or 6 months. They're all just these arbitrary numbers that have just been invented in someone's head. They've got no rationale behind them. Now, if anyone does get that, because we get people coming to us saying, I've got to wait 3 months or 6 months, first question I always ask them is, can you move around geographically? Are you like Joseph? You've just failed for Northumbria, could you apply for Durham or Cleveland? And be like, yeah, but I've been told I can't reapply for 3 months. That's for that force only. You can put your application in as long as they're accepting applications for Durham or Cleveland tomorrow, today, now. So, you've got that option. But Joseph, I'm quite sure you're going to pass, aren't you? Going to pass both of them.
Well, that's hopefully. Well, thank you very much for that. That's great news. Cheers.
Yeah. The person who's got the most options is always capable of making the best decision. All right. I'll take a question from Sam, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. Quick one. Obviously, you mentioned about the scoring the highest and things like that, and of course, mentioning the OAC. Are all of the... So I've just done the SIFT, and I scored pretty high in that. Are they just looking at that OAC score exclusively, or is it across the board at every kind of level? Do they look at all of those things combined?
Yeah, good question. It depends on the force.
Fine.
Now, I'll give you an example of Cheshire, because I know this to be true from several years ago. What they used to do is if they had an intake of like 25 people, so they're preparing for an intake of 25, they've pulled the numbers down through the SIFT. The SIFT was slightly different back then, but they still had a SIFT type thing. They've got the numbers all the way down to, let's just say 100. So there's 100 people who have passed everything, and there's 25 vacancies. There's another intake in 4 months' time that's 25. So actually, it's like 1 in 2. They've got to have a system to be able to decide who those people are going to be. And Cheshire was actually the force that was a force behind the stated case. So what Cheshire did about 10 years ago is, because they wanted to boost the force with women and underrepresented groups, they took the pool of 100 and just treated every one of them as, you've all passed. And the law then allows them to select people based on their minority group category membership into the force. And so they recruited a lot of women and a lot of underrepresented groups. Now, this is going to make sense in terms of what you're asking about, Sam, in a moment. So it was a white male police officer whose father was an inspector in Cheshire who took that to court and said, I've been discriminated against. And it all went all the way to the High Court in London, where the High Court judges said, ask Cheshire, do people get marks? Not just pass or fail. And they said, yeah, they get like percentages. Right, well, you've got to use them. You can't just treat everyone as having a pass. You have to use those in how you select people. So, because I have had a few people message me to say, I'm a white male, am I going to get discriminated against? No, you're not. You won't. You can't be. I mean, I'm a great believer that forces should be better represented, but I'm also a great believer that the system and process should be fair. Now, Cheshire were doing something that wasn't fair back then. Now, how is this relevant to the question you've just asked, Sam? What this means is that Cheshire and every other force can only select people for an intake based on their scores, which is why the scores are so important. Now, the law doesn't say which score, so it could be the score from the final interview, or it could be a combined score from online assessment centre and final interview, or it could be a combined score from SIFT, online assessment centre and final interview. The law doesn't say which. So a force could pool all the scores together, or if it was me, if I was in charge of that recruitment team, what I'd be doing is I'd be basing it on the final interview score, because the final interview is in front of a real police officer, whereas the online assessment, well, it's just the national SIFT is just being marked by software. And the online assessment centre is being marked by people who we believe have never been in the police before. Does that surprise any of you, by the way, that the people who are marking your online assessment centre have never been in the police? Is anyone surprised by that? Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you're surprised by that. I was as well. Well, I wasn't really. It's the College of Policing. Remember, I've worked with them in Forum on 4 occasions. We are well connected. You know, our team has got over 250 years worth of management experience in the police. We are incredibly well connected across thousands of people on forums like LinkedIn. We're very well connected within the police sector. Not one of us has ever met any police officer who is an assessor for the College of Policing. When I worked in the College of Policing in their organisational development unit about 5 or 6 years ago, I did meet a couple of assessors who assessed the old assessment centre. Not one of them had been in the police, ever. Not one of them had ever been in the police. So you're being assessed against people who've never been in the police before. Would I trust their judgment over the judgment of a frontline sergeant or a frontline inspector? I think I'd prefer the judgment of a frontline sergeant or a frontline inspector, because those are the people who are interviewing at your final interview. So if it was me, if I was in charge, I would say, let's base our decisions on the final interview score only. But I can't say that's definitely the case, Sam. Is that helping you answer your question, and probably actually answering other questions as well?
Yeah, no. It's fine. It's just so I get a better understanding. But I guess the idea is to just score well across all and put yourself in the best position, right? So, yeah, appreciate that.